A handshake can tell a story, and between Donald Trump and Emmanuel Macron, it always has. Their first handshake in 2017, a gripping, prolonged palm move, set the tone for a complex diplomatic relationship. Years later, as they met again in 2025, that tension was still palpable. Now the stakes are even higher. A war in Ukraine, a divided West, and two leaders with starkly different approaches to peace. As Trump and Macron stood side by side, their words told two different stories. Trump, ever the dealmaker, promised a swift resolution to the Ukraine war, claiming that it could end within weeks.
Our focus is on achieving a ceasefire as soon as possible and ultimately a permanent peace. My meeting with President Macron today was another important step forward in that sphere because he's been very much involved right from the beginning in trying to get it over with, and we're going to get it done. I believe that Emmanuel agrees with me on many of the most important issues. Chief among them is this is the right time. It may be the only time. We're working on deals right now, transactions right now, and in particular, the big one is to get the war stopped, whether it's ceasefire or direct to an agreement.
Macron, however, pushed back, warning against a rush deal without solid security guarantees.
I think it's good to have discussion. I think it's useful to have negotiation. I think it's super important to go to the peace. But my strong point was to say, let's try to get something first which can be assessed, checked and verified. And let's be sure that we build sufficient guarantees on the short run. And this is where we are ready to be engaged. As for France, a lot of my European colleagues are ready to be engaged. But we do need this American backup because this is part of the credibility of the security guarantees. And this is our collective deterrence capacity.
The tension between them came to a head when Trump made a sweeping claim about Europe's financial support for Ukraine. Trump insisted that Europe was merely loaning money to Ukraine, implying that the US was giving aid with no returns. But Macron wasn't having it. He immediately interjected, physically reaching out to Trump to correct him.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total efforts, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money, to be clear. We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day and Russia will have paid for that.
If you believe that, it's okay with me.
Mr. President,
If they get their money back, we don't, and now we do. But that's
We
only
will fight
fair.
both.
There's going to be no more war.
An extraordinary moment, one leader interrupting another, live on the world stage. But who is really driving the peace process in Ukraine? Trump claims to have Putin's ear. He believes the Russian leader is open to European peacekeepers in Ukraine. But Macron is more cautious. He cut direct talks with Putin after the atrocities in Bucha, and while he acknowledges that diplomatic engagement is necessary, he insists that any deal must be more than just words. For Europe, the concern isn't just peace, it's about ensuring Ukraine's survival. As the war in Ukraine enters its fourth year, the US approach under Trump is shifting. Trump has openly questioned NATO's role, resisted labeling Russia the aggressor, and even suggested reintroducing Russia into the G7. His latest push, an economic deal that would give the US access to Ukraine's critical minerals, partly to offset the $180 billion that America has spent on aid so far. But how does this fit into the bigger picture? European leaders worry that Trump's diplomacy is more about transactions than long-term security. And while he claims to be closing in on a deal, key details like security guarantees are still murky. One thing is clear, Macron and Trump may have shared smiles, but beneath the surface, their visions for Ukraine's future couldn't be more different.